let me share something that changed the way I see life. Over the years, I've learned that true peace comes not from what others give you, but from what you refuse to accept. In the teachings of Buddhism, we're reminded of this. Our suffering often stems not from what happens to us, but from what we allow into our hearts and minds. I've seen how accepting certain behaviors, words, or actions from others can quietly steal away our inner peace, like drops of ink slowly clouding clear water. When I first started exploring these ideas, I didn't realize how much of my energy I wasted, holding on to things I shouldn't, letting people's negativity seep into my thoughts and allowing their judgments to shape how I saw myself. Slowly, the teachings of the Buddha helped me see another way. They taught me to protect my peace like a sacred temple and to recognize the power of saying, "No, I will not carry that." Today, I want to share with you 12 things we should never accept from anyone. Behaviors and attitudes that can quietly chip away at our sense of self. These insights, rooted in timeless wisdom, aren't just ideas. They're practical tools to help you build boundaries, protect your heart, and nurture the life you deserve. I remember a woman I once met at a retreat. Let's call her Maya. She had spent years in relationships, personal and professional, where she felt invisible. People dismissed her feelings, crossed her boundaries, and pushed guilt onto her for things she had no control over. Maya thought she was being kind by staying quiet, by absorbing others' negativity instead of confronting it. But over time, the weight of those unspoken words began to drain her spirit. One day, during a group discussion, she shared how she felt stuck. A teacher gently said to her, "Maya, you're not stuck. You're just holding things that aren't yours to carry." Those words hit all of us like a bell ringing in a quiet room. The teacher explained how clinging to harmful words, actions, or expectations is like picking up hot coals and expecting not to get burned. It's not our job to hold on to others' disrespect, manipulations, or negativity. That's when Maya realized that protecting her peace didn't mean being unkind. It meant being honest with herself and with others. From that day on, she began practicing something simple yet transformative, letting go of what didn't belong in her life. It wasn't easy at first. She had to learn to say no, to recognize what wasn't hers to carry, and to trust herself enough to walk away from what wasn't aligned with her values. But the more she practiced, the lighter she felt. Her story reminds me, and I hope it reminds you, that every day we have a choice to protect our peace, to nurture our well-being, and to live in a way that reflects our deepest values. Now let's explore these 12 things we should never receive from anyone, and see how they can guide us toward a life of clarity, strength, and compassion. 1. Do not accept contempt from anyone. Contempt is a silent poison. It sneaks in through dismissive words, a belittling tone, or even a look that tells you, you are less. I've seen it erode people's confidence, leaving them questioning their worth. But let me be clear, no one has the right to make you feel small. Not a family member, not a friend, not a stranger. In Buddhism, there's a teaching that resonates deeply with me. You are worthy simply because you exist. The Buddha reminds us that each person carries the same inherent value. No one is above or below another. Contempt thrives on the illusion of superiority. When someone looks down on you, they're not reflecting your worth. They're revealing their own misunderstanding of life. I used to struggle with this. Years ago, I worked under someone who made contempt their weapon of choice. They would dismiss my ideas, mock my efforts, and subtly make me feel that no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. For months, I carried their judgment as if it were my truth. But something changed when I started reading Buddhist teachings on self-worth. I learned that contempt only has power if you accept it. The Buddha's teachings are clear. We cannot control what others say or do, but we can control how we respond. That realization shifted something inside me. I began to see that my worth wasn't tied to their approval, and their words were just that, words. They didn't define me unless I let them. When someone shows you contempt, you have two choices: carry it as a burden or reject it as a gift that doesn't belong to you. Rejecting it doesn't mean fighting back with anger or trying to prove them wrong. It means standing firm in the truth of who you are. A tree doesn't stop being strong because someone calls it weak. The next time someone shows you contempt, ask yourself, is this about me or is it about them? More often than not, it's their issue, not yours. Bow to their humanity if you must, but don't bow to their arrogance. Your dignity is sacred and no one has the right to take it away. 2. Do not allow others to control your decisions. Our decisions shape our lives. Every choice we make is like a thread in the fabric of our journey. Yet, so often, people try to weave their own desires into our tapestry, pushing us to follow their path instead of our own. Let me say this as clearly as I can. Your life is yours, and no one else has the right to dictate how you live it. I remember a young man who came to me during a retreat. He was torn. His parents wanted him to follow a certain career path, but his heart was pulling him in a completely different direction. He felt trapped, as if honoring his own dreams would mean betraying his family. I told him what Buddhism has taught me. True harmony comes when your actions align with your inner truth. The Buddha taught that each person must walk their own path. Even the greatest teacher can only guide. They cannot walk for you. When you allow someone to control your decisions, you lose not just your autonomy, but also the chance to live authentically. I've been there too. For years, I let others' opinions shape my choices. I said yes when I wanted to say no, took paths that weren't mine to walk, and silenced my inner voice to keep the peace. But peace built on self-betrayal is fragile. It wasn't until I began meditating on the Buddha's teachings that I realized the cost of living someone else's life. Buddhism teaches that true freedom begins within. When we take responsibility for our decisions, we step into our power. This doesn't mean disregarding others' feelings or advice. It means listening, reflecting, and then making a choice that aligns with your values. If someone tries to control your decisions, pause and ask yourself, whose life am I living? Am I honoring my truth or theirs? Choosing your path might upset others, but living out of alignment will upset your soul. The Buddha never promised an easy road. He promised a meaningful one. Take back your decisions. Walk your path. The journey may be challenging, but it will be yours, and that is a life worth living. 3. Reject unjustified guilt. Guilt can be a powerful teacher, but only when it's justified. When it's not, guilt becomes a heavy chain that binds your spirit and clouds your mind. I've seen this countless times, people burdened by guilt for things they didn't do, for outcomes they couldn't control, or for simply being who they are. Let me tell you something Buddhism has taught me. Unjustified guilt is like carrying a boulder that was never yours to lift. I once met a woman who had spent years feeling guilty for prioritizing her own happiness. Her family had convinced her that putting her needs first was selfish. For years, she lived for others, sacrificing her dreams and suppressing her voice. When she finally broke free, the guilt was almost unbearable. She told me, "It's like I can't win. If I stay, I'm unhappy. If I leave, I'm guilty." Buddhism teaches us to approach emotions like guilt with mindfulness. Instead of reacting to it or letting it consume us, we examine it with curiosity. When guilt arises, we ask ourselves, is this guilt rooted in truth, or is it imposed by others? The Buddha reminds us that while we are responsible for our actions, we are not responsible for the expectations or emotions of others. I've learned that unjustified guilt often comes from external pressures, society, family, or even cultural norms. But holding on to that guilt serves no one. It prevents you from living authentically and from showing up fully for the people you care about. When you release it, you're not just freeing yourself, you're creating space for honesty and growth in your relationships. Rejecting unjustified guilt doesn't mean ignoring accountability. It means discerning between what is truly yours to carry and what belongs to someone else. If you've wronged someone, make amends. But if someone tries to make you feel guilty for living your truth, let that guilt go. It's not yours to hold. The next time guilt knocks at your door, ask yourself, is this mine, or has someone left this at my feet? If it's not yours, bow to it, thank it for the lesson, and let it pass. You owe it to yourself to live with a clear heart and an unburdened mind. 4. Do not tolerate dishonesty. Dishonesty is a toxin that erodes trust and distorts reality. Whether it's lies, half-truths, or manipulation, dishonesty creates an environment where clarity and connection cannot thrive. Buddhism teaches us the importance of truthfulness, not just as a moral principle, but as a foundation for inner peace and harmony. Without truth, there is no solid ground to stand on. I learned this lesson the hard way. Years ago, I trusted someone deeply, only to discover they had been dishonest about important matters. At first, I tried to overlook it, telling myself, everyone makes mistakes. But the lies continued, and I found myself questioning not just them, but my own judgment. It was as if their dishonesty had cast a shadow over everything, including my sense of self. In Buddhism, honesty is a cornerstone of right speech, one of the principles of the Noble Eightfold Path. The Buddha taught that truthful communication fosters understanding and trust, while dishonesty leads to confusion and suffering. When we tolerate dishonesty from others, we invite chaos into our lives. We lose our ability to discern what's real, and that lack of clarity can leave us feeling lost. But here's the thing. Rejecting dishonesty doesn't have to be confrontational. It starts with setting clear boundaries. When someone lies to you, you have every right to call it out or step away. You don't owe anyone your trust if they've proven unworthy of it. Trust, once broken, can only be rebuilt with consistent honesty over time. At the same time, Buddhism also teaches compassion. When you encounter dishonesty, ask yourself, what fear or insecurity might be driving this behavior? Understanding doesn't mean excusing. It means recognizing that dishonesty often comes from a place of pain or misunderstanding. While you can have compassion for someone's struggles, you are not obligated to accept their lies. Living truthfully doesn't just mean speaking honestly. It means surrounding yourself with people who value the truth as much as you do. It means choosing relationships built on mutual respect and transparency. When you reject dishonesty, you're not just protecting yourself, you're honoring the sacred principle of truth. Do not let dishonesty have a place in your life. Protect your peace, seek clarity, and hold yourself and others accountable to the truth. In doing so, you'll create a space where trust can flourish and where your heart can rest in authenticity. 5. Defend your personal boundaries. Personal boundaries are sacred. They are the invisible lines that protect our well-being, define our limits, and remind others how we deserve to be treated. Yet, so many of us struggle to defend them. I've been there, saying yes when I meant no, letting others invade my time, my space, my peace. But here's the truth. Without boundaries, we lose ourselves. In Buddhism, boundaries align with the concept of self-compassion. The Buddha taught that while we should extend kindness to others, we must first show kindness to ourselves. If you allow people to constantly cross your boundaries, you're not only harming yourself, but you're also enabling their lack of awareness or respect. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're acts of love for you and for the other person. I remember a friend who once shared her struggle with this. She was the yes person in her circle, the one everyone turned to for help, advice, or favors. But inside she was exhausted, resentful, and completely drained. She told me, "I feel like I'm disappearing." That's what happens when we don't defend our boundaries. We lose touch with who we are and what we need. Defending your boundaries doesn't mean building walls. It means creating gates, open to those who respect your space, closed to those who don't, and the key to those gates lies in your hands. When someone tries to cross a line, it's your responsibility to speak up. This isn't easy, especially if you fear conflict. But Buddhism teaches us to act with right intention, to communicate our needs with clarity and compassion. When I started setting boundaries, I realized something profound. The people who respect you will honor them, and the ones who don't may not belong in your life. Defending your boundaries becomes a way to filter out what doesn't serve you. So, ask yourself, what are my boundaries? Where do I draw the line? Then, practice defending them. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but remember, every time you protect your boundaries, you strengthen your sense of self. And that's not just an act of survival, it's an act of liberation. 6. Do not let others waste your time. Time is the most precious resource we have. Once it's gone, it never returns. Yet how often do we let others steal it with unnecessary demands, meaningless distractions, or trivial interruptions? I used to struggle with this, filling my days with obligations that didn't align with my goals, letting people pull me into situations that drained my energy. It wasn't until I embraced the teachings of Buddhism that I truly understood the value of time. The Buddha often spoke of mindfulness, the practice of being fully present and intentional in how we live. When we allow others to waste our time, we're not just losing minutes or hours. We're losing opportunities to grow, to reflect, to create. Time wasted is life wasted. I once worked with someone who had a habit of dumping their problems on me, long, meandering complaints that rarely led to solutions. At first, I listened, thinking I was being helpful, but over time, I noticed how drained and frustrated I felt after these interactions. I realized that while it's kind to support others, it's unkind to yourself if it comes at the cost of your peace and purpose. Buddhism teaches us to prioritize what aligns with our values. This doesn't mean shutting people out or being unavailable. It means discerning what truly matters. When someone demands your time, ask yourself, is this meaningful? Does this serve a purpose for them or for me? If the answer is no, it's okay to step back. Saying no to time wasters isn't rude, it's responsible. The Buddha's teaching of right action reminds us to act in ways that support our well-being and the well-being of others. Allowing someone to waste your time serves neither. By setting limits, you're not rejecting them. You're honoring your own life. One practice that helped me was treating my time like I treat my health. Just as I wouldn't eat something harmful to my body, I stopped saying yes to things harmful to my time. The results were life-changing. I found more space for creativity, for meaningful relationships, for simply being. Protect your time like the treasure it is. The next time someone tries to pull you into something that doesn't serve you, pause and reflect. Your time is your life, and no one else has the right to decide how you spend it. Use it wisely, and you'll find not just productivity, but peace. 7. Reject destructive criticism. Criticism is a double-edged sword. It can shape us, refine us, and help us grow when delivered with the right intent. But destructive criticism, that's different. It's the kind of feedback that tears down rather than builds up, often motivated by anger, jealousy, or insecurity. I've learned through experience and Buddhist teachings that accepting destructive criticism is like letting someone throw dirt at your soul. It doesn't belong there, and it's your choice whether to let it stick. There was a time in my life when I couldn't distinguish between helpful and harmful criticism. I took every comment to heart, analyzing it endlessly, even when the words came from people who clearly didn't have my best interests at heart. It wasn't until I encountered the Buddhist teaching of right speech that I began to see things differently. The Buddha taught that speech should be kind, necessary, and truthful. Destructive criticism fails on all counts. The first step to rejecting harmful criticism is recognizing its source. Ask yourself, does this person truly know me? Are they speaking from a place of wisdom or from their own pain? Often, destructive criticism reflects the critic's inner struggles more than your shortcomings. Buddhism reminds us to approach such situations with compassion, not for their words, but for the suffering that drives them. Rejecting destructive criticism doesn't mean ignoring all feedback. In fact, the Buddha encouraged self-reflection, but it does mean filtering what you take in. If criticism doesn't align with your values or doesn't offer a path for growth, let it go. You're not obligated to internalize someone else's negativity. I've learned to respond to such comments with calmness. Instead of arguing or defending myself, I reflect on whether the criticism has any merit. If it doesn't, I silently release it. This practice, rooted in mindfulness, protects my peace and helps me stay grounded. Remember, constructive criticism helps you grow. Destructive criticism stifles your spirit. Choose carefully what you allow into your heart. You deserve feedback that uplifts and guides, not words that wound and diminish. 8. Do not accept a lack of empathy. Empathy is the bridge that connects us as human beings. Without it, relationships become hollow, interactions feel cold, and misunderstandings multiply. A lack of empathy is more than just a failure to care. It's a rejection of the shared humanity that binds us. Through Buddhism, I've come to see empathy as both a gift we give others and a boundary we set for ourselves. We can extend compassion, but we don't have to accept indifference or cruelty in return. I remember a student who once shared her story during a retreat. She had spent years trying to explain her struggles to a friend who consistently dismissed her feelings. "I feel invisible," she said, her voice heavy with frustration. She wanted so badly to be understood, to have her emotions acknowledged. But no matter how hard she tried, her friend remained indifferent. In Buddhism, compassion starts with ourselves. The Buddha taught that while we should strive to show kindness to all beings, we must also protect our own well-being. Accepting a lack of empathy from someone, whether it's indifference, dismissiveness, or outright hostility, doesn't align with this principle. It's not our duty to make someone care. It's our responsibility to honor our own emotional needs. When faced with a lack of empathy, the first step is awareness. Notice how it affects you. Do you feel drained, unseen, or invalidated? These feelings are signals that something isn't right. Buddhist mindfulness practices encourage us to observe these emotions without judgment, allowing us to respond rather than react. You can choose how to respond to this lack of empathy. Sometimes it means having an honest conversation, expressing your needs clearly and calmly. Other times it means stepping back from relationships that don't offer mutual respect or understanding. This isn't an act of anger, but of self-respect. Empathy is the foundation of meaningful connections. Without it, relationships lose their depth and purpose. By refusing to accept a lack of empathy, you're not being unreasonable. You're honoring your worth. Surround yourself with people who see you, who listen, and who genuinely care. And if someone can't meet you there, it's okay to let them go. Your peace is worth protecting, and your heart deserves to be held with care. 9. Avoid constant negativity. Negativity is like a slow poison. It doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in gradually, clouding your thoughts and weighing down your spirit. Constant negativity, whether it's from others or from within, has the power to drain your energy, obscure your perspective, and rob you of joy. One of the most transformative lessons I've learned from Buddhism is this: you cannot control the storms around you, but you can choose not to let them enter your heart. There was a time when I allowed negativity to dominate my environment. I had people around me who always focused on what was wrong, what couldn't be done, and how life was unfair. Their complaints became my inner dialogue, and soon I found myself carrying their pessimism like it was my own. The Buddha's teachings on mindfulness helped me see this pattern for what it was, a cycle I didn't have to be part of. The Buddha taught that our thoughts shape our reality. When negativity surrounds us, it's easy to start believing that life is bleak. But when we cultivate an attitude of gratitude and focus on what's good, our experience changes. Avoiding negativity doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means choosing to approach life with a balanced perspective. One of the hardest lessons for me was learning to distance myself from people who constantly brought negativity into my life. It wasn't about abandoning them, but about protecting my peace. In Buddhism, this aligns with the concept of right association. Surrounding yourself with individuals who uplift and inspire you is as vital as nourishing your body with healthy food. Negativity will always exist, but it's your choice whether to let it consume you. Practice mindfulness to recognize when negativity starts to creep in, whether from external sources or your own thoughts. Acknowledge it, but don't cling to it. Instead, focus on gratitude, kindness, and the beauty in the present moment. By doing this, you're not only protecting your peace, but also creating a ripple of positivity that can inspire others. 10. Do not fall for emotional manipulation. Emotional manipulation is one of the most subtle yet damaging forms of control. It creeps into relationships disguised as love, care, or concern, but its true aim is to bend your will to someone else's desires. The Buddha's teachings on mindfulness and emotional independence have been invaluable to me in recognizing and resisting this kind of manipulation. I've seen this play out in my own life and in the lives of those I've worked with. A friend once confided in me about a relationship where her partner would use guilt and emotional outbursts to control her decisions. "He says I'm being selfish if I don't do what he wants," she told me. Her words struck a chord because I'd been there too, caught in a web of someone else's expectations, feeling trapped and unable to breathe. Buddhism teaches us to observe our emotions without being ruled by them. Emotional manipulation thrives on our inability to separate our feelings from reality. When someone uses guilt, fear, or shame to control us, they're exploiting our compassion and our desire for harmony. But the Buddha reminds us, true harmony begins within. We can be kind and compassionate without sacrificing our own well-being. The first step to resisting emotional manipulation is awareness. Ask yourself, does this person's behavior make me feel small, powerless, or obligated to please them at the expense of my own values? Recognizing these patterns is crucial. Emotional manipulation often feels subtle. It's not always obvious until you step back and see the bigger picture. Once you identify it, the next step is setting boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are clear markers of what you will and won't accept. You can say no with kindness but firmness. Emotional manipulators often rely on your fear of conflict or rejection, but Buddhism teaches us that peace comes from authenticity, not appeasement. Lastly, cultivate inner strength. The Buddha's teachings on self-reliance emphasize that our happiness and peace are not dependent on others. When you stand firm in your values and refuse to be swayed by manipulation, you reclaim your power. This doesn't mean cutting people off entirely. It means choosing relationships that are built on mutual respect and understanding, not control. Do not let anyone use your emotions as strings to pull you in directions that don't align with your truth. You are not a puppet. You are a person with the right to live authentically and freely. Protect your peace and remember that emotional freedom is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. 11. Do not accept constant disapproval. Constant disapproval is one of the most insidious forces that can erode your sense of self. When someone continually criticizes you, whether overtly or subtly, it's not just their words that hurt. It's the way they make you doubt your worth, your abilities, and even your choices. Buddhism teaches us a vital truth. Your value is not determined by others' opinions, but by your own perception of your actions and intentions. I remember a time when I allowed disapproval to define me. A colleague, someone I once respected, seemed to find fault in everything I did. No matter how hard I worked or how much effort I put in, it was never enough in their eyes. At first, I internalized their criticisms, thinking I needed to improve. But the more I tried, the more I realized their disapproval wasn't about me. It was about them. The Buddha's teachings on non-attachment were my turning point. He taught that clinging to external validation, or in this case, avoiding disapproval, leads to suffering. When we tie our worth to what others think, we hand over the keys to our peace. The truth is, no matter how kind, talented, or hardworking you are, there will always be people who disapprove. Instead of chasing their approval, focus on living with integrity. Ask yourself, am I acting in alignment with my values? Am I making choices that reflect my truth? If the answer is yes, their disapproval holds no weight. It's their lens, not your reality. Rejecting constant disapproval doesn't mean ignoring feedback. Buddhism encourages us to welcome constructive criticism as it helps us grow. But there's a difference between guidance and constant negativity. When someone persistently disapproves without offering genuine help or insight, it's a reflection of their inner struggles, not your inadequacy. Protect yourself from such energy. Limit your exposure to those who constantly disapprove, and surround yourself with people who see your potential and celebrate your growth. Remember, your worth is inherent. It doesn't fluctuate based on someone else's opinions. 12. Do not tolerate a lack of support. Support is the lifeline of any meaningful relationship. It's what connects us, sustains us, and gives us the strength to face life's challenges. A lack of support, on the other hand, can leave you feeling isolated and unworthy, like you're walking a long road with no one by your side. Buddhism emphasizes the importance of connection, reminding us that while we strive for self-reliance, we are still interconnected beings who thrive in mutual care. I've experienced the sting of a lack of support firsthand. A close friend, someone I had always been there for, seemed to disappear when I needed them most. I struggled to reconcile the relationship, asking myself if I was expecting too much. But the teachings of the Buddha clarified it for me. True relationships are built on balance, giving and receiving in harmony. When someone consistently fails to support you, it's not just about their actions, it's about what they're telling you. Their absence sends a message that your needs, dreams, or struggles are not important. Buddhism teaches us to approach such situations with compassion, but also wisdom. Support is not something you can demand or force. It must come from a place of genuine care. If you find yourself in a relationship where support is lacking, start by reflecting on your own role. Have you communicated your needs clearly? Sometimes people don't realize what we're going through until we express it. But if you've done this and the pattern persists, it's time to set boundaries. The Buddha's teachings on right association remind us to surround ourselves with people who uplift us. This doesn't mean abandoning relationships lightly, but it does mean prioritizing your well-being. Let go of the guilt that often accompanies these decisions. Choosing to distance yourself from unsupportive people is an act of self-respect, not selfishness. At the same time, practice gratitude for those who do support you, even in small ways. Buddhism teaches us to focus on abundance rather than lack. Celebrate the friends, family, or mentors who stand by you and lean into those connections. Remember, you deserve relationships that nourish your spirit and encourage your growth. Do not settle for less. Seek and nurture bonds that reflect mutual care, and let those be the foundation of a life filled with strength, love, and support. As we come to the end of this journey together, I hope these teachings have sparked something within you, a reminder of your inherent worth and the power you hold to protect your peace. Buddhism teaches us that life is not about what we endure, but about what we choose to let in and let go. By refusing to accept these 12 things from anyone, you're not just setting boundaries, you're honoring your truth and creating a space for a more compassionate, balanced, and fulfilling life. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these resonated with you the most? Have you struggled with any of these in your own life? Share your thoughts, your stories, or even your questions in the comments below. Your insights might inspire someone else on their journey. If this video brought you value, consider subscribing to the channel. Together, we explore timeless wisdom to help us live with more peace, clarity, and purpose. Don't miss out. Join our community today. Thank you for being here. Until next time, protect your peace, walk with kindness, and remember, you are enough just as you are.